Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the UES Discovery and watched the alien ship grow larger on the main screen. His hands were sweaty inside his gloves. This was the first time humans would meet aliens face to face. After 3 months of radio, messages back and forth, the Zephyrians had agreed to come aboard their ship. Captain Lisa Hayes stood beside him, her face calm, but Jake could see the tension in her shoulders. The whole crew was nervous. 24 hours ago, they were just exploring empty space. Now they were about to make history. Remember, Captain Hayes said to the greeting party, be polite, be respectful, and don't touch anything unless they say it's okay. Jake nodded along with the others. Lieutenant Amy Parker stood next to him, checking her tablet for the 100th time. She had studied every word the aliens had sent them. Dr. Kate Sullivan was there too, with her medical scanner ready in case the aliens needed help. The airlock made a soft hissing sound. Jake felt his heart beat faster. The door opened slowly. The first alien stepped through and Jake forgot how to breathe. She was tall, maybe 7 feet, but she moved like she was floating. Her skin was silver and seemed to glow with soft light. She had long arms and legs, but everything about her looked graceful and smooth. Her face was beautiful in a way that made Jake think of ancient statues, but alive and warm. Her eyes were the most amazing thing. They were large and purple like the color of deep space. When she looked around the room, Jake felt like she could see everything about him just by looking. I am Ambassador Lyra Veltar, she said. Her voice was musical, like singing. I speak for the Zephyrian Council. We come in peace to meet the humans. Captain Hayes stepped forward. Welcome aboard the Discovery, Ambassador. I am Captain Lisa Hayes. We are honored to meet you. 2 more aliens came through the airlock behind Lyra. They were shorter and had darker silver skin. They carried strange devices that looked like a mix of computers and art. One of them whispered something to Lyra in their own language. It sounded like wind chimes. Jake watched as Lyra moved across the room to greet each human. She was so graceful that she seemed to glide instead of walk. When she came closer, he could see that her silver skin had tiny patterns on it, like scales but made of light. These are my advisors, Lyra said. Commander Nix Telrin and Science Officer Coda Ventai. They will help us learn about each other. Jake tried to pay attention to the formal introductions, but he couldn't stop watching Lyra. Everything about her was perfect. The way she moved, the way she spoke, even the way she turned her head to listen. It was like watching poetry come to life. Amy leaned close to Jake and whispered, "This is incredible, look at their technology." She pointed to the devices the other aliens carried. But Jake wasn't looking at the technology. He was looking at Lyra as she talked with Captain Hayes about their journey to Earth. Her voice rose and fell like music, and when she smiled, it lit up her whole face. The journey took us 47 of your days, Lyra was saying. Our ships travel faster than light, but we wanted to approach slowly to show we mean no harm. We appreciate that, Captain Hayes said. We know this is a big moment for both our peoples. Lyra nodded. Yes, we have watched your species for some time. You are very interesting to us. Jake wondered what she meant by interesting. The aliens seemed so advanced, so perfect. What could they possibly find interesting about humans? Dr. Sullivan started asking questions about Zephyrian biology and whether they needed any special conditions on the ship. Jake listened as Lyra explained that they could breathe human air just fine, and their body temperature was similar to humans. As the formal meeting continued, Jake found himself studying every detail about Lyra. The way her long fingers moved when she talked. How her silver skin seemed to shimmer when she was thinking. The graceful way she stood like a dancer ready to move. Captain Hayes was explaining the ship's layout and asking about sleeping arrangements for their guests. We have prepared quarters for you on Deck 5, she said. Dr. Sullivan will show you the way and make sure you have everything you need. That is very kind, Lyra said. We do not require much. We sleep very little compared to humans. As the group started to move toward the door, Lyra walked past Jake. She was so close, he could smell something like flowers and starlight. Without Thinking, he leaned toward Amy and whispered very quietly, "She's flawless." He said it so softly that he was sure no one else could hear. It was just a thought that escaped his lips. Amy didn't even seem to notice. But as the words left his mouth, Jake saw something that made his blood freeze. Lyra's step hesitated for just a moment. Her head turned slightly, like someone who had heard something interesting. Then she continued, walking as if nothing had happened. Jake told himself he was imagining things. There was no way she could have heard him. He had whispered it so quietly that even Amy, who was right next to him, hadn't heard. But as the aliens left the bridge with Dr. Sullivan, Jake couldn't shake the feeling that somehow, impossibly, Lyra had heard every word. The next morning, Captain Hayes called Jake to her office. He knocked on the door and went in, wondering if he had done something wrong during the first contact meeting. "Sit down, Jake," she said, pointing to a chair. "I have a special job for you." Jake sat down and waited. Captain Hayes looked tired. She had probably been up all night talking with the alien visitors. "The Zephyrians want to learn about human culture," she said. "Ambassador Lyra asked specifically for someone to show her around the ship and explain how we live. I'm putting you in charge of that." Jake's heart jumped. "Me? Why me?" "You're good with people and you know the ship well. Plus, Dr. Sullivan will be busy running medical tests with their permission. She wants to make sure we can all stay healthy together." Jake nodded, but inside he was nervous. How was he supposed to explain human culture to someone so perfect and advanced? What if he said something stupid? "Just be yourself," Captain Hayes said, like she could read his mind. "Show her the normal parts of life on the ship, the mess hall, the recreation deck, the gym. Let her see how we really live." An hour later, Jake met Lyra outside her quarters. She wore a simple silver outfit that seemed to change color slightly when she moved. She smiled when she saw him, and Jake felt his heart speed up again. "Lieutenant Morrison," she said. "I am pleased you will be my guide today. Just call me Jake," he said. "Should I call you Ambassador?" "Lyra's fine," she said. "Where will we go first?" Jake decided to start with the mess hall. It was almost lunchtime, and he thought she might want to see how humans ate together. As they walked through the hallways, crew members stopped to stare at Lyra. She didn't seem to mind the attention. "This is where we eat our meals," Jake said as they entered the mess hall. The room was full of people talking and laughing. The smell of food filled the air. Lyra stood very still, and her large purple eyes moved around the room slowly. "There is so much noise," she said. "Oh, sorry. Is it too loud for you?" Jake asked. He started to worry that human voices might hurt her ears. "No, not painful," she said. "Just very different. On our ships, mealtime is quiet. We eat what we need and return to work." Jake got 2 trays of food and found them a table in a quieter corner. Lyra looked at the food with interest. She tried small bites of everything and asked questions about where each food came from. "This is from Earth?" she asked, holding up a piece of apple. "Yes, we grow these in orchards. Trees full of them. They're sweet and good for you," Jake explained. "Sweet." Lyra repeated the word like she was testing it. "We do not have sweet foods. Our food gives us what our bodies need, but taste is not important." After lunch, Jake took her to the recreation deck. This was where the crew went when they weren't working. Some people were playing cards, others were reading, and a few were playing music together. Lyra stopped in front of the musicians. They were playing guitar and singing an old Earth song about missing home. She listened with her head tilted like she was trying to understand something difficult. "What is the purpose of this?" she asked. "Purpose?" Jake was confused. "They're just having fun, making music because they enjoy it. But what does it accomplish?" Jake thought about how to explain it. "Well, it makes them happy, and it reminds them of home. Music can make you feel things." "Feel things," Lyra said slowly. "You mean emotions?" "Yes, exactly." Jake was surprised she had to think about it. "Don't Zephyrians have music?" "We have. Sounds that are pleasing. But we do not make them to feel emotions. Emotions are inefficient." Jake stared at her. "Inefficient?" They make thinking unclear. They cause mistakes. We learned long ago to control them. This made Jake sad for some reason he couldn't explain. He couldn't imagine life without music, without the feelings that made everything meaningful. They moved on to look at the art gallery. The walls were covered with paintings and drawings made by crew members. Lyra studied each one carefully. "These images do not show real things," she said, looking at an abstract painting of swirling colors. "No, that one is about feelings. The artist painted what sadness looks like to her." Lyra was quiet for a long time. Then she asked, "Why would someone want to look at sadness?" Jake had never thought about it that way. "I guess because it helps. You understand that other people feel sad too. It makes you feel less alone." "Alone," Lyra repeated. "Is that something humans fear? Sometimes. Don't you ever feel lonely?" "We do not feel lonely. We have our duties and our work. That is enough." As they continued the tour, Lyra asked more questions about human emotions. She wanted to know about love, anger, fear, and joy. Each time Jake tried to explain, she listened like a student trying to learn a foreign language. "Humans seem to make many choices based on emotions," she said as they stood looking out a window at the stars. "Is this not dangerous?" "Sometimes," Jake admitted, "but emotions also help us. Love makes us protect each other. Fear keeps us safe. Joy makes life worth living." "Worth living," she said quietly. "We do not think about life being worth something. Life simply is." Jake looked at her profile as she stared out at space. Even when she was thinking, she was beautiful. But now he felt sorry for her too. How sad it must be to live without feelings, to never experience the joy of music or the warmth of love. "Jake," she said suddenly, turning to look at him. "Yesterday when we first met, did you say something?" Jake's blood went cold. "Say something? When?" "When I walked past you. I thought I heard words, but very quiet." Jake's mind raced. There was no way she could have heard his whisper, but the way she was looking at him made him think she knew exactly what he had said. "I don't remember saying anything," he lied, his face getting hot. Lyra studied his face for a moment, then nodded. "Perhaps I was mistaken. Human voices are still new to me." But Jake didn't think she was mistaken at all. Somehow, she had heard him call her flawless. The question was, what did she think about it? As they walked back toward her quarters, Jake wondered what else the Zephyrians might have heard that humans thought was private. And he wondered why Lyra seemed so interested in human emotions when her own people had given them up long ago. 3 days into the visit, Dr. Kate Sullivan made a discovery that changed everything. She burst into the briefing room where Captain Hayes was meeting with the senior officers. "Captain, we have a problem," she said, breathing hard like she had been running. "I need to tell you something about the Zephyrians." Jake looked up from his notes about Lyra's cultural questions. Lieutenant Ben Rodriguez stopped eating his sandwich. Everyone turned to look at Dr. Sullivan. "What kind of problem?" Captain Hayes asked. "It's about their hearing. I've been running tests on the sound equipment they brought. Their ears can hear sounds that are much higher and lower than what humans can hear, and they can hear things that are very, very quiet." Jake felt his stomach drop. How quiet? A whisper from across a large room, maybe even quieter than that. Dr. Sullivan sat down heavily. "Captain, they've been hearing our private conversations this whole time." The room went silent. Jake thought about all the things the crew had said when they thought the aliens couldn't hear. Jokes about how strange they looked, worries about whether they could be trusted, personal conversations about family and fears. "Are you sure about this?" Captain Hayes asked. "I ran the test 3 times. Their hearing is at least 10 times better than ours. When we whisper to each other, to them it probably sounds like normal talking." Lieutenant Rodriguez swore under his breath. "So they know everything we've said." Jake's face went red as he remembered his whispered comment about Lyra being flawless. She had definitely heard him, but why hadn't she said anything? "There's more," Dr. Sullivan continued. I think they can also hear our heartbeats and breathing patterns. To them, our emotions are probably as obvious as if we were shouting them. Captain Hayes rubbed her forehead. This changes things. We need to talk to Ambassador Lyra about this right away. An hour later, they met with Lyra in the conference room. She sat calmly while Captain Hayes explained what they had discovered about Zephyrian hearing. You have been listening to our private conversations, Captain Hayes said. It wasn't a question. Lyra nodded. Yes. We did not realize you could not hear each other the same way. In our culture, there are no private spoken words. We assumed you knew we could hear you. What have you heard? Jake asked, his voice tight. Lyra looked directly at him. Everything. Your fears about meeting us. Your jokes about our appearance. Your personal stories about your families. And your emotions, which are very loud to us even when you are silent. Jake felt like he wanted to disappear into the floor. Are you angry with us for listening? Lyra asked. We did not mean to invade your privacy. Captain Hayes was quiet for a moment. We're not angry, but we need to understand why this happened. Is this some kind of test? Lyra's silver skin seemed to shimmer, and Jake realized she was nervous. Yes and no. We came here to learn about humans, but we learned much more than we expected. What do you mean? Dr. Sullivan asked. Lyra stood up and walked to the window. My people have been watching your species for many years. We have technology that is much more advanced than yours. Our cities are perfect. Our people live for thousands of years. We have no war, no hunger, no disease. That sounds wonderful, Lieutenant Rodriguez said. Does it? Lyra turned back to them. We also have no joy, no love, no passion. We gave up emotions long ago because we thought they made us weak. We became perfect, but we lost something important. She sat back down and looked at each human in turn. When we heard your people talking, we realized what we had lost. The way you care for each other, the way you find beauty in small things, the way you create art and music just because it makes you happy. Jake found his voice. So this whole visit is about studying our emotions? Partly, yes, but also to see if alliance with humans could help my people remember what we used to be. Captain Hayes leaned forward. What do you mean? What you used to be? Zephyrians were not always emotionless. Thousands of years ago, we felt things the way you do. We had families that loved each other, not just breeding partnerships. We made art because it was beautiful, not because it was useful. We sang songs that made us cry. Dr. Sullivan looked amazed. What happened? Why did you change? There was a great war between those who wanted to keep emotions and those who thought emotions made us weak. The emotionless side won. They convinced everyone that feelings were a disease that held us back from becoming perfect. Lyra's voice became very quiet. They were wrong. We became perfect at everything except living. Jake felt sorry for her, for all the Zephyrians. Is that why you're really here? To learn how to feel again? Some of us, yes, but not all. There are still those among my people who think emotions are dangerous. They think humans could infect us with their chaos and make us weak again. Captain. Hayes understood immediately. They're coming, aren't they? The ones who don't want you to learn from us. Lyra nodded sadly. Commander Zeth Korval leads a faction that wants to destroy what they call the human contamination before it can spread. They will be here soon. How soon? Lieutenant Rodriguez asked. Perhaps today, perhaps tomorrow. Their ships are faster than ours. Jake stood up quickly. Then we need to get ready to fight them. You cannot fight them with weapons, Lyra said. Their technology is too advanced, but there might be another way. What way? Captain Hayes asked. Lyra looked at Jake. They expect humans to act logically, to follow patterns they can predict. But emotions make you unpredictable. Your feelings make you do things that don't make sense to them. You're saying our emotions are a weapon? Dr. Sullivan asked. Not a weapon, a strength they cannot understand or plan for. Lyra stood up. I must tell you something else. When Jake whispered that I was flawless, it was the first time in centuries that anyone had called me beautiful for no logical reason. It made me feel something I thought I had lost forever. Jake stared at her. What did you feel? Lyra smiled, and it was the most human expression Jake had seen from her. I felt happy, and for the first time in my very long life, I wanted to feel more. The alarm suddenly started blaring throughout the ship. Lieutenant Rodriguez's communicator crackled to life. Bridge to conference room. Captain, we have multiple ships approaching fast. They don't look friendly. Captain Hayes stood up. Looks like we're about to find out if human emotions really are stronger than Zephyrian perfection. Jake looked at Lyra and saw something in her purple eyes that hadn't been there before. Fear, determination, and something else. Something that looked almost like hope. The battle for humanity's right to feel was about to begin. The bridge erupted in controlled chaos as the crew rushed to battle stations. Jake ran alongside Lyra as they headed to the command center. Through the main screen, he could see 5 Zephyrian ships approaching. They were sleek and deadly, like silver arrows pointing at the Discovery. Captain Hayes to all hands, the announcement echoed through the ship. We are about to face hostile alien vessels. This is not a drill. All crew to battle stations. Captain Hayes turned to Lyra as they reached the bridge. Can you contact them? Try to talk them out of this? Lyra shook her head. Commander Zeth will not listen. He believes humans are a disease that will destroy Zephyrian perfection. He will try to kill everyone on this ship. Our weapons are no match for theirs, Lieutenant Rodriguez said from the weapons station. Their shields can probably stop anything we throw at them. Jake watched the enemy ships on the screen. They moved in perfect formation like they were dancing together. Everything about them was smooth and coordinated. That's it, Jake said suddenly. They're too perfect. Everyone looked at him. What do you mean? Captain Hayes asked. Look how they fly. Perfect formation, perfect spacing. They're probably following some kind of battle plan that tells them exactly what to do. Jake turned to Lyra. What happens when someone doesn't do what they expect? Lyra's eyes lit up with understanding. They have to stop and calculate new responses. It takes time. Then we don't give them time, Captain Hayes said. All ships, break formation, fly like crazy people. Captain? Lieutenant Rodriguez looked confused. You heard me. Forget everything you learned in Academy about proper flying. Be random. Be unpredictable. Make them guess what we're going to do next. The Discovery suddenly lurched to the left, then dove down, then spun in a circle. Jake grabbed onto his chair as the ship moved in ways that made no sense. Behind them, the other human ships did the same thing. They flew like drunk birds, twisting and turning without any pattern. The Zephyrian ships hesitated. Jake could see them slowing down, like they were trying to figure out what the humans were doing. It's working, Dr. Sullivan said from her station. Their formation is breaking up. But the pause didn't last long. The enemy ships spread out and started firing. Bright blue beams of energy shot toward the human vessels. One beam hit the Discoveries, shields, and the whole ship shook. Shields down to 60%, Lieutenant Rodriguez reported. We can't take many more hits like that, Captain Hayes said. Lyra, is there anything else you can tell us about their weapons? Lyra was studying the enemy ship patterns on the screen. Their weapons are controlled by computers that predict where targets will be. But if the target moves in ways the computer cannot predict, the shots miss, Jake finished. We need to be even more random. Captain Hayes smiled grimly. You heard him, people. Fly like your life depends on it, because it does. The battle became a crazy dance in space. Human ships twisted and spun and changed direction for no reason at all. Some pilots started playing music and flying to the beat. Others closed their eyes and just followed their feelings about where to go next. The Zephyrian computers couldn't keep up. Shot after shot missed as human ships moved in ways that made no mathematical sense. Commander Zeth is getting angry, Lyra said, listening to the enemy communications. He's ordering his ships to get closer so they can't miss. Good, Jake said. Angry people make mistakes. But as the enemy ships moved closer, Jake saw boarding pods launching from them. They're sending soldiers over. Security teams to all airlocks, Captain Hayes ordered. Prepare to repel boarders. Jake grabbed a weapon from the emergency locker. I'm going with them. Jake, no, Lyra said. You are not a soldier. Neither are you, but you're coming too, aren't you? Lyra looked surprised. How did you know? Because you're angry too. I can see it in your eyes. And anger makes people fight. They ran through the corridors as alarms blared. Other crew members were running too, some toward the airlocks, others to damage control stations. The ship shook again as more energy beams hit it. At Airlock 3, they found Lieutenant Rodriguez leading a team of security officers. They're trying to cut through the door, he said. Maybe 2 minutes before they get inside. How many? Jake asked. Scans show 6 of them. They're probably armed with advanced weapons. The cutting sound stopped. Everyone raised their weapons and pointed them at the door. Remember, Rodriguez whispered, they expect us to fight logically, do unexpected things. The door exploded inward. Tall silver figures in battle armor rushed through the opening. They moved like deadly machines, fast and coordinated. The humans scattered in all directions instead of forming a defensive line. Some dove behind cover, others charged straight at the enemies, and Jake rolled across the floor for no reason, except that it felt right. The Zephyrian soldiers stopped, confused. Their computers had probably told them humans would take cover and shoot from behind barriers. Instead, the humans were everywhere, moving in ways that made no sense. Jake saw one of the aliens turning toward Lyra. Without thinking, he threw himself between them. The alien's weapon fired, and pain shot through Jake's shoulder as the energy beam grazed him. But something amazing happened next. Lyra screamed. It wasn't a human scream, but something deeper and more powerful. Her silver skin turned bright white, and she moved faster than Jake had ever seen anyone move. She hit the soldier who had shot Jake, and her blow sent the armored figure flying into the wall. Lyra, Jake gasped, holding his injured shoulder. She turned to look at him, and her purple eyes were blazing with an emotion Jake had never seen in her before. Pure rage. You hurt him, she said to the Zephyrian soldier in their musical language. But now her voice sounded like an angry storm. The other alien soldiers stopped fighting and stared at her. They started talking rapidly in their own language, pointing at Lyra with what looked like fear. What are they saying? Jake asked. They are saying I am infected, Lyra said, her voice still carrying that new angry power. They say I have caught the human disease of emotion. She smiled, and it was fierce and beautiful. They are right. Lyra moved through the remaining soldiers like a silver hurricane. Her movements were still graceful, but now they were powered by something the aliens had never seen before. A Zephyrian fighting with human emotion. Within minutes, all the boarding soldiers were unconscious on the floor. Bridge to all sections. Captain Hayes' voice came over the communication system. Enemy ships are retreating. Repeat. Enemy ships are retreating. Jake sat against the wall, holding his wounded shoulder, and watched Lyra as she slowly returned to normal. Her skin faded from bright white back to silver, but her eyes still held that new fire. How do you feel? He asked her. Lyra thought about it for a moment. Angry, protective, worried about your injury. She paused. Alive. For the first time in centuries, I feel truly alive. Jake smiled despite the pain. Welcome to being human. 2 weeks later, Jake sat in the medical bay while Dr. Sullivan removed the last of his bandages. His shoulder was almost healed, thanks to some Zephyrian medicine that Lyra had shared with them. How does it feel? Dr. Sullivan asked. Jake moved his arm carefully. Good as new, maybe even better. The Zephyrian healing technology is amazing, she said. Lyra has been teaching me how it works. Did you know it responds to the patient's emotions? The more someone wants to heal, the faster it works. Jake smiled. Of course it does. Everything seems to work better with emotions. Dr. Sullivan packed up her medical tools. Speaking of emotions, Lyra has been asking about you every day. She seems very worried. Where is she now? Conference room with Captain Hayes. They're planning the new alliance. Jake found them studying star charts and documents. Captain Hayes looked up when he came in. Jake! Good to see you on your feet. How's the shoulder? Perfect, he said, then looked at Lyra. How are the negotiations going? Lyra's face lit up when she saw him. Over the past 2 weeks, she had become much more expressive. Very well. The Zephyrian Council wants to learn more about human emotions. They are sending more ambassadors to work with your people. What about Commander Zeth and his followers? They have been disciplined, Lyra said carefully. When the Council learned that emotions made me stronger, not weaker, they began to question Zeth's ideas. He and his ships have been sent far away to think about what they did. Captain Hayes pointed to the star charts. We're planning joint exploration missions. Human crews and Zephyrian crews working together. Lyra thinks her people can learn emotions by spending time with humans. And humans can learn Zephyrian technology and wisdom, Lyra added. It will help both our species. Jake nodded, but he noticed that Lyra looked sad about something. What's wrong? Lyra was quiet for a moment. I must return to my home world, soon to report to the Council. I do not know when I will see you again. Jake felt his heart sink. Over the past 2 weeks, he and Lyra had spent hours talking together. She was learning about human emotions and he was learning about Zephyrian culture. But it had become more than just cultural exchange. He cared about her, maybe more than he should. How long will you be gone? He asked. Perhaps months. Perhaps years. The Council will want to study what I have learned. Captain Hayes looked between them and seemed to understand something. Actually, I have an idea about that. Jake, how would you feel about being our first ambassador to the Zephyrian homeworld? Jake stared at her. What? We need someone to represent humanity in their government. Someone who understands both cultures. Someone who has already helped a Zephyrian learn about emotions. Lyra's purple eyes went wide. You would do that? Leave your home to come to my world? Jake thought about it. It would mean leaving Earth, leaving everything he knew. But it would also mean staying with Lyra, helping her people learn to feel again. Yes, he said. I would do that. Lyra smiled so brightly that her whole face seemed to glow. Then she did something that surprised everyone, including herself. She hugged Jake. It was awkward at first. Zephyrians didn't usually touch each other, and Lyra had never hugged anyone before. But Jake hugged her back and she learned quickly. Thank you, she whispered. I was afraid I would have to learn about emotions alone. You'll never be alone, Jake said. That's what emotions are for. They connect us to other people. 3 months later, Jake stood on the bridge of a Zephyrian ship as it approached the alien homeworld. Lyra stood beside him, pointing out the sights. That is our capital city, she said, indicating a gleaming structure that seemed to be made of light itself. And those are the learning centers where young Zephyrians study. The planet was beautiful, but in a perfect, sterile way. Everything was clean and orderly. Nothing was out of place. It looks lonely, Jake said. Lyra nodded. It was, but it will not be for much longer. Over the following weeks, Jake watched as Lyra shared what she had learned about emotions with other Zephyrians. At first they were afraid and confused. Emotions seemed dangerous and chaotic to them. But slowly, things began to change. Young Zephyrians were the first to understand. They started creating art that expressed feelings instead of just showing technical skill. They began singing songs that told stories about love and loss and hope. Older Zephyrians were more careful, but even they began to see the value in emotions. Scientists discovered that teams with emotional bonds worked better together. Leaders found that caring about their people made them make better decisions. Jake helped by teaching them about human culture. He showed them movies and music, poetry and paintings. He explained how emotions made humans stronger, not weaker. One evening, Jake and Lyra walked together through the city gardens. The plants here were perfectly arranged, but Jake noticed that some young Zephyrians had started planting flowers in random patterns just because they thought it looked beautiful. Your people are changing, Jake observed. Yes, Lyra said. Some of the older ones are worried that we will become too much like humans. They think we will lose our wisdom and become chaotic. What do you think? Lyra stopped walking and turned to face him. I think there is wisdom in chaos. I think perfect order without feeling is just emptiness. They sat on a bench overlooking the city. In the distance, Jake could hear something that would have been impossible months ago. Zephyrian children were laughing. "Jake," Lyra said quietly, "do you remember what you said when you first saw me? About me being flawless?" Jake's face got warm. "Yes, I'm sorry about that. I know you heard me." "Do not be sorry." That word made me think about what flawless really means. Lyra looked up at the stars. "I thought flawless meant perfect, with no mistakes or problems, but now I understand something different." "What do you understand?" Lyra turned to look at him, and her purple eyes were soft with an emotion Jake was still helping her learn to express. "True perfection is not the absence of flaws. It is the ability to find beauty despite the flaws. To love something not because it is perfect, but because it is real." Jake felt his heart speed up the way it always did when Lyra looked at him like that. "And what do you think now? When you look at yourself?" Lyra smiled. "I think I am beautifully flawed. I make mistakes. Now I feel sad sometimes. I worry about things that may never happen. And I am happier than I have ever been." She reached over and took his hand. Her silver skin was warm against his. "And when I look at you," she continued, "I see someone who taught me that the most important things in life cannot be measured or calculated. They can only be felt." Jake squeezed her hand gently. "What do you feel when you look at me?" "Love," Lyra said simply. "I feel love. And it is the most perfect imperfection of all." They sat together in comfortable silence, watching the stars, and listening to the sound of a world learning to feel again. Jake thought about how he had once whispered that Lyra was flawless, not knowing she could hear him. Now he knew the truth. She wasn't flawless, and neither was he. But together, with all their imperfections and emotions and beautiful human chaos, they were exactly what both their species needed. Perfect in their imperfection, and more alive than they had ever dreamed possible.